Hey there, welcome back. Or if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm really glad you are here with me today. You know what I've been thinking about lately? How exhausting is it to live in limbo? To be constantly sitting on the fence about things that matter to us. We tell ourselves we are being careful, being smart, keeping our options open. But really, we are just avoiding making a choice. And I think that avoidance is slowly killing our potential. So today, I want to talk about this idea that has been rattling around in my head. Being all in or all out, not hanging in the middle, making decisions and then actually living them, instead of constantly looking over our shoulder at what we left behind or what else might be out there. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who seem to really be living, who have built something meaningful, who you look at and think, I want some of that energy, that clarity, that sense of purpose. I bet if you really examine their lives, you will find they have one thing in common. They know how to commit. They know how to choose something and then put their whole self into it. They are not hedging their bets or keeping 17 backup plans. They have learned the art of decisive living. Now, we live in a culture that tells us commitment is dangerous. Keep your options open. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. Have a plan B, C, and D. And look, I am not completely against planning, but I think we have taken this so far that we have forgotten how to actually choose anything. We end up living these half lives where we are never fully present anywhere because we are always wondering if we should be somewhere else. There is this old story about a Roman general who burned his ships after landing on enemy shores. His soldiers could not retreat even if they wanted to. They had to find a way to win or face the consequences. Now that's extreme, and I am not suggesting we all start burning our metaphorical boats. But there is something powerful in that level of commitment. When you remove the easy escape routes, something shifts in how you approach challenges. You stop looking for ways out and start looking for ways through. Here is what I have noticed about people who live this way. They are not necessarily more talented or lucky than anyone else, but they develop this ability to focus all their energy in one direction instead of scattering it in 10 different directions. Think about learning a skill. You could spend 2 hours a week on guitar, 2 hours on piano, 2 hours on painting, 2 hours on writing. At the end of the year, you'll be okay at 4 things. Or you could spend 8 hours a week on a guitar and become genuinely good at one thing. Most of us choose the first option because it feels safer. If guitar does not work out, we have still got piano. If piano does not work out, we have still got painting. But what we end up with is a bunch of half-developed abilities and no real mystery of anything. The middle ground feels safe, but it is actually the most dangerous place to live because you never find out what you are actually capable of. You never develop the skill that come from going deep. You never build the confidence that comes from seeing something through. You know what is interesting? We think decisive people are just born that way. But I think it's a skill you can develop. Like any muscle, the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. Start small. Instead of watching Netflix while scrolling your phone, while thinking about work, choose one thing. Be fully present with whatever you pick. Instead of half-heartedly going to the gym while mentally planning your grocery list, be completely there in your workout. Instead of staying in that conversation that is going nowhere because it's easier than ending it, either engage fully or politely excuse yourself. I think about relationships, work that people do, and there's one thing. People stay in jobs that are slowly draining their soul because it is easier than making a change. It happens a lot with work. They keep one foot out the door, always looking for something better, but never fully engaging with what is in front of them. And then they wonder why they are not getting promoted, why they are not finding fulfillment, why they feel stuck. But if you are not fully committed to where you are, how can you expect to get the most out of it? Now, I am not saying stay in a terrible situation. I am not saying either commit to making it better or commit to living. But this halfway approach where you complain about your job while doing the minimum required work, that is not protecting you from anything. It's just guaranteeing you will be miserable. Here is something that might surprise you. The people who are best at committing fully are also the best at knowing when to quit, because they engage so completely with what they are doing, that they get clear information about whether it's working or not. When you are only half invested in something, you never get clear data. You can always wonder, what if I had really tried? What if I had given it everything? But when you're all in, you know whether this thing has potential or not. You know whether it's worth continuing or time to move on. Think about creativity for a moment. How many people do you know who are working on a novel or thinking about starting a business or planning to learn a language? They have been working on it, thinking about it, planning it for years. But they never actually do it, because doing it means committing. It means risking failure. It means putting something out there that might not be perfect. So, instead, they stay in perpetual preparation mode, always getting ready to start, but never actually starting. Because as long as it's just an idea, it can be perfect. As long as they don't actually write a book, it can be the best book ever written. But ideas don't change the world. Books that exist only in your head don't touch anyone's life. Businesses you never start don't solve any problems. I think we have confused having options with having freedom. Real freedom is not having infinite choices. Real freedom is the ability to choose something and then be fully present with that choice. When you're constantly keeping your options open, you are never fully anywhere. You are never fully committed to any path, any person, any purpose. You're always living partially, always holding something back, just in case. But that just in case mindset is what keeps you stuck. Because if you're always preparing for the backup plan, you are never giving your first choice the energy it needs to succeed. Here's what happens when you start living decisively. You discover capabilities you did not know you had. When you can't fall back on plan B, you get incredibly creative about making plan A work. When you commit fully to a relationship, you develop conflict resolution skills because you have to. You can't just leave at the first sign of difficulty. When you commit fully to a creative project, You push through the messy middle because you are not giving yourself permission to quit when it gets hard. When you commit fully to a fitness routine, you figure out how to make it work with your schedule, your energy levels, your lifestyle. Because it is not optional anymore. It is something you have decided is important to who you want to be. Now let's talk about fear for a minute. Because I think that's really what is underneath all this fence sitting. We are afraid of making the wrong choice. We are afraid of missing out on something better. We are afraid of failure. But here's the thing about fear, it is not trying to keep you safe from real danger. It is trying to keep you safe from uncertainty. And uncertainty is just part of life. You cannot avoid it by refusing to choose. You can only avoid living. Every choice involves giving up something else. That is how choosing works. When you choose one path, you are not walking the other paths. When you choose one person to build a life with, you are not building lives with other people. And yes, that means you might miss out on some things. But you know what you are guaranteed to miss out on if you never choose anything? Everything. You miss out on a deep satisfaction of mastery, the intimacy that comes from commitment, the confidence that comes from seeing something through. I want to challenge this idea that decisive people are just naturally confident. I think it's the opposite. I think decisive people become confident through the act of making decisions and living with them. Every time you choose something and stick with it through the hard parts, you build evidence for yourself that you can handle difficulty. Every time you commit fully to something and see it through, you prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you thought. Confidence is not what allows you to make decisions. Making decisions is what builds confidence. So, how do you start living this way? How do you break the habit of constantly hedging your bets? First, get honest about where you are stuck in the middle. Where are you keeping one foot out of the door? What are you half committed to? What have you been thinking about for months or years without actually doing? Write it down if that helps. Look at the list. These are the areas where you are leaking energy, where you are preventing yourself from building momentum. Then, start making some choices. Start small if you need to. Choose to either read that book you have been meaning to read, or take it off of your list and stop feeling guilty about it. Choose to either have that difficult conversation you have been avoiding, or accept that the relationship is what it is. Choose to either commit to that workout routine or stop pretending you are someone who works out. Choose to either learn that skill you're always talking about learning, or stop talking about it. Here's what I have learned. The world responds to commitment. The universe responds to commitment. Not because of some mystical law of attraction, but because commitment changes how you show up in the world. When you're fully committed to something, you notice opportunities you missed before. You have conversations you would not have had. You take actions you wouldn't have taken. You develop skills you would not have developed. People can sense when you are all in versus when you are just dabbling. And they respond differently to someone who is serious about what they are doing. But here's the most important part. You have to be willing to be wrong. You have to be willing to choose something, commit it fully, and have it not work out the way you hoped. That's not failure. That is data. That's how you learn what you actually want, what actually works, what you are actually good at. but you only get that information by going all in. If you never commit fully to anything, you never get clear feedback about what works and what does not. You can always wonder, what if I had really tried? Let's think about parenting with this concept. The parents who seem most confident, most present, most effective, they are not the ones who are constantly second guessing every decision. They are the ones who make the best choice they can with the information they have. And then they are fully present with that choice. But they are not perfect parents. There is no such thing. But they are decisive parents. They choose an approach and they commit to it. And their kids feel that stability, that presence, that sense of my parents know what they're doing. The same principle applies everywhere. The best leaders are not the ones who never make mistakes. They are the ones who make decisions and then lead from those decisions, rather than constantly looking over their shoulder wondering if they chose right. Let's address something. Some of you might be thinking, this all sounds great, but what about practical considerations? What about mortgages and kids and real world responsibilities? And I hear you. I am not suggesting everyone quit their day job to become a street musician. But this principle works at every scale. You can be all in or all out with how you show up to your current job while you are there. You can be fully present with your kids when you are with them, instead of constantly thinking about work. You can choose to either plan that family vacation or stop talking about it and making everyone feel guilty. You can commit fully to the 20 minutes of exercise you have time for, instead of feeling bad that it's not an hour. You can choose to either call that friend you have been meaning to call or accept that the friendship has run its course. The magic is not in having perfect circumstances. The magic is in being fully where you are, doing what you're doing, committed to the choices you have made right now. Because here's the truth. Most of your unhappiness probably does not come from your circumstances. It comes from your relationship to your circumstances. It comes from constantly wishing you were somewhere else, doing something else, with someone else. When you learn to be all in wherever you are, something shifts. You are not constantly using your energy to resist your life. You are using your energy to engage with your life. And that engagement, that full presence, that wholehearted commitment, that is where growth happens. That's where satisfaction comes from. That's where you discover what you are actually capable of. Here's what I want you to understand. This isn't about being rigid or inflexible. This is not about never changing your mind or adjusting course. This is about engaging fully with whatever you choose, for as long as you choose it. When you live this way, you actually become more flexible, not less, because you're getting clear, real-time feedback about what's working and what is not. You can make informed decisions about when to stay and when to go, because you have actually tried. You know what the alternative is. The alternative is spending your whole life wondering what would have happened if you had really gone for it. Wondering what you might have been capable of if you had stopped holding back. Wondering what your relationships could have been if you had been fully present. Wondering what your work could have looked like if you had engaged completely. Wondering what you could have created if you had committed to creating it. That wondering, That constant what if, that is not wisdom. That is not being careful. That is torture. And it is self imposed torture. The antidote is simple: choose something, commit to it, be all in while you are in. And when it's time to be out, be all out. I want to leave you with this thought. Right now, today, you have the opportunity to stop living in limbo. You have the opportunity to look at your life and make some real choices, not perfect choices. There is no such thing, but real choices, clear choices, choices you can live with fully without constantly second guessing yourself. Your life is happening right now, not when you figure out everything, not when you have perfect information, not when the risks disappear. Right now. And the question is not whether you will make mistakes. You will. The question is whether you will make them while fully engaged with your life, or while sitting on the sidelines wondering what might have been. The people living the most satisfying lives are not the ones who never face uncertainty. They are the ones who have learned to act in spite of uncertainty. They are the ones who understand that commitment is not about guaranteeing outcomes. It is about guaranteeing that you will show up fully for whatever comes. So tonight, when you have a quiet moment, ask yourself, where am I hanging in the middle? Where am I keeping one foot out the door? Where am I preventing myself from building real momentum because I'm afraid to choose? And then choose. Not because the choice is perfect, but because choosing is how you start living. Your dreams don't need you to be certain. They don't need you to have all the answers. They don't need you to guarantee success. They just need you to be all in. Thanks for being here with me today. I hope something in this conversation gave you permission to stop hedging your bets and start believing in your own capacity to handle whatever comes from your choices. Until then, remember, you're either in or you're out. Don't hang in the middle. See you next time, my friend. Ciao.